Is Bitcoin front-running the big $100,000 level, or can we expect a new all-time high to be made within the next couple of days? I will give you my perspective on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and also one altcoin as always. So before we begin, it's always important to understand the context. As with every video of mine, I will explain the context, what Bitcoin was doing over the last couple of days, and what I am looking for next. So on Bitcoin, we can clearly see that we have front-run the big $100,000 level by just a few dollars, right? It's just $190 away from the big $100,000 level. One thing we have to keep in mind, though, is that on the CME chart, we've actually hit that 100K zone. So if we look at the daily candles, we can see Bitcoin had this massive rise to the upside. We were in a little bit of a consolidation range at around 92,080. Let's just call it 86,000. So we finally broke out of this range, making our way to this big target zone. If we look at the lower time frames, we can clearly see one thing, and that is, I would say, the most important thing that we have to keep an eye on. And that is, when we just look at this chart, we can see prices still making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. This was just another higher high, and this rejection still ended in a higher low. So simply by looking at market structure, we can still expect another rotation to the upside. Okay, now what I am going to do is monitor this market structure for potential breaks. So once I see the market structure is changing on the 4-hour time frame, I will think to myself that the probability of reaching that $100,000 level has not been, or doesn't have to be reached within the next couple of days, as that would be the first sign of weakness. All right, but before that happens, I am not interested in any short trades. I don't need to be the person who is shorting the absolute top of Bitcoin. I always prefer to look at some signs of weakness first. And yeah, my opinion, there just have not been any signs of weakness yet. So one thing we can look at is that we are currently hitting a daily level of resistance, but for me, with the given market structure, that's not really a short trade I am interested in. So one thing I am a little bit more interested in still is longs on pullbacks. Okay, and there's one level that is catching my attention, or that has already caught my attention. That is the previous week value area low. You don't see these levels being presented very often, especially on crypto, but I found some pretty nice confluence at around this level. So as always, what I was saying for different assets, it is respected on every single asset. When an asset is trending like Bitcoin is doing at the moment, I'm always looking at previous supply and demand zones. So what I can see here is that during this consolidation range, Bitcoin actually formed a pretty nice supply zone at around 92,600. Okay, we can see it was supply once, two times, 3 times before it was broken, and we saw this nice rise to the upside. So naturally, this is already a good place to look at for a retest. Now, with the confluence of the previous week value area low, that is pretty nice. I am interested in this level. I'm going to set an alert. And one thing I would also always do for these types of price action is to look at anchored VWAPs. Okay, I'm anchoring in a VWAP here from the start of this consolidation range, and we can see this anchored VWAP has been respected pretty perfectly. We can see a little bit of chop around that level, then it was acting as support once, twice, and then we broke this supply zone to the upside. Now this retest is also going to line up with this previous supply zone anchored view up, previous week value area low, and if we add in another tool, which is our beloved CC Fibonacci, we can see that's also lining up with this level. So that's definitely an area we want to keep in mind for a nice area of support. I'm not saying that I would preset this level, because everything that's going up as fast as Bitcoin did can also retrace as fast. So I would not place limit orders here, and instead I would wait for a reaction, and then I would see if I can get into a long trade at this area or not. A reaction for me always looks like this. I want to see the level being hit. I want to see a little bit of a move away from this level. I want to see the level retested, and if we then manage to change local market structure, this for me would be a very valid long trade entry. So that is what I'm looking at in terms of the day trades. But there's also something I want to look at as the scalp trading opportunity. So on Bitcoin, what I really like with this move to the upside is that the volume is actually pretty nice. So we can see very high volume, a lot of market participants, some of them already longing the top up here. That's not what we want to do, but we can make use of the low time frame volatility. So for that, it makes sense to go down to the even lower time frames. For me, that would be the 30-minute time frame. And there is something that's really interesting. So for a scalp trade, I can see that was even an acceptable scalp trade. For me, not interested in this type of trade, as I'm more interested in the swing trades on the short side, okay? But there's one thing that's very interesting. So we still have this big 100K level untested. Now, it's always a little bit more difficult to trade a psychological level simply for it being a psychological level. So I always prefer it to be in confluence with other levels. So there's one channel that we can draw here for this local price action, and that looks as such. So we can see local high up here and this local low down here. We can see that the middle of the channel is also pretty perfectly well respected actually. So that validates this channel once more. And here, when I look at a short trade on that 100K level, I can simply use the range high as my reference point. So if I see an SFP into the 100K level, I see a close below this range high, then I have a very acceptable short trade that I can take based off a low time frame confirmation, which is the SFP of that range high. Okay, and then I would aim to take it into the opposite side of this range first. So this would be the first target. Potentially, this might even turn out to be a nice swing trade. But that is how I would attempt to get into this trade. If I don't see a swing failure pattern with a close below this reference point, I can still look for a failed auction. Obviously, this is something that we teach over on our website at chartchampions.com. But this is the one and only short trade I would be interested in at around 100,000 for now. If we do a minor rejection at this 100K level and simply flip that range high into support and continue to the upside, there's no short trade to be had. It's as simple as that. So, in terms of the long trade, we also have a very well-defined range low. And what I like about this is even that looks a little bit unfinished. So we can see this higher low came very close to our range low. However, it didn't take the liquidity below. So for this range low, I can also look for a very simple long trade setup down here, which would be an SFP of the range low. For that, I need to see a 30-minute candle taking that previous low, closing inside the range, and then I have an actionable long trade. Now, if that happens before the short trade is triggered, I would try to take this long trade into the $100,000 level, obviously taking profits along the way. For a take profit, it's always very useful to look at a fixed range and TP according to the volume profile, like a take profit 1 on the value area low, point of control, value area high, and then ride it to target. So this is what I would look at on Bitcoin. I'm not trying to overcomplicate things here. There's only two levels of interest in terms of the long trade. One for more of the day trades, which was the previous week value area low. This range SFP is more of the scalp trade that then turns into a day trade. This explains very well what I'm looking at in terms of the short trade. I want to see the SFP, use the range high as my reference point. If that is given, I would enter a short trade on Bitcoin. But as it stands with bullish market structure, no sign of weakness, bullish sentiment in crypto, there's no need for me to look for a short trade up here or where we are at the moment. So I hope that's very clear. And let's also have a look at Ethereum, because Ethereum also caught a nice move to the upside. So let's have a look at Ethereum on the lower time frames first, as there was a very nice long trade that I've been given in my altcoin streams that I host every week, but also in the public YouTube streams. And that was the long trade down here based off a naked point of control. Okay, so I was looking at a move below this range low, actually pretty similar to what Bitcoin was doing. So at the time, I was looking at Ethereum as trading within a range. Okay, I wanted to see the range low SFP. We didn't get the SFP, so that was more of a failed auction, but we got the reclaim of the range low, and then I targeted the other side of the range. And we can see target is hit, and Ethereum even continuing with another new high that was formed just now. So that was the long trade. And now let's have a look at the context of Ethereum to see where we are in terms of the bigger picture. For that, I want to look at the daily time frame. So unlike Bitcoin, we can clearly see that Ethereum has not made a new all-time high yet. All right, so this could still end in a lower high formation. So for me, in order to have a reference point where Ethereum is trading, I can always look at a previous range of fixed range pull. Okay, I'm just going to do that here to see where Ethereum is trading at. And what's very interesting here is that Ethereum managed to reclaim the previous range value area low. We got accepted inside, and now we've seen the rotation into the range or previous range point of control. So let me just call this point of control. So that naturally is a very, very big and important area of resistance. Okay, so that's very important to see what Ethereum does here. I want to look at some additional tools here, and I will easily find out that this is actually a major resistance zone on Ethereum. So we have a previous range point of control that's lining up with the 0.75, as well as, let me actually clean this up a little bit. So we have a weekly naked point of control, we have a monthly naked point of control, and we also have a weekly level that's just been tapped. We also have a daily level. And yeah, that being said, there is a massive resistance zone that we hit just now. And in my opinion, that's even the last major resistance. And once that is claimed, I would expect to see the high at $4,100 to be tested again. Because if that is flipped, I would say it's now a little bit more likely to form a lower high at around this area, and it's best to look for the next liquidity, which is sitting up here at 4,100. So let's now have a look at the lower time frames to see if there's actually a short trade to be had or not. So I myself have already taken a short trade on that first attempt here. I gave this short trade in one of my altcoin streams, have taken a take profit 1, and now I was stopped at break even. Okay, so in terms of market structure, it's still very simple to see what Ethereum is doing here. We are doing higher highs, higher lows, higher high, higher low, another higher high. Now, for me, it doesn't make any sense to look for long trades up here. So the only thing I would do is look for a short trade. And let me clean this up a little bit because that is tested. And I now want to look at the weekly and previous range point of control only. Okay. So for me, it's going to be very important to see what Ethereum does here in terms of market structure. This is such a critical and crucial area of resistance that I am still interested in a short trade here, because as I was saying before, if that is flipped, I would not be surprised to see a new local high to be made at 4,100. Okay, so it does make sense to at least open myself up to the idea of taking a short trade, right? But I can't short aggressively. For me, that doesn't make sense with the given market structure. So here I can look at the 4-hour time frame and say to myself, okay, I can wait for the market structure change, but for that it has to take the 3,266 level on the 4-hour time frame, and then we are instantly hitting that previous supply zone, which is a little bit of support. So I, for myself, want to go down to the lower time frames. For that, I can use the 30-minute time frame. And what I can see here is that there's no great anchor point for a previous low. So what I would have to wait for is more price action. I need to see price rejecting a little bit here. Then we maybe get a retest of that zone up here. And if price is then taking the lows once more, then I can say to myself, in terms of market structure, I have a low, I have a lower high, and once that low is broken again, I have a confirmed market structure change on the 30-minute time frame. And this is where I would open myself for the idea of taking a short trade. This is not aiming for a massive swing trade at first, so I would even attempt to take a take profit one down here at this range low. But this could turn into a nice swing trade if we start to see weakness come in on Ethereum. And then I would not be interested in managing this trade too much, and instead I would just try to keep this running. But for me, it's extremely critical for this trade to get my low time frame weakness, what I was showing here. Okay, with what I'm seeing here on the lower time frames, it doesn't make any sense to look for a short trade up here. Now, if you are a very aggressive trader, that is something one can do, but nothing that I, as more of a conservative trader, likes to do. Okay, so this is the only short trade that I am interested in if we get this scenario to play out. So, since we are still seeing strength, is there maybe a long trade to be had? So, I'm going to have a look at this scenario as well. I'm going to put that into a box of short trade, into a group here, and I can hide this now. So we can clearly see market structure is still going up. In my opinion, the best long trade was down here. This is the long trade that I've been given in the public streams, as well as my altcoin stream that I host on the website every week. Okay, so I can now look at a little bit of low time frame support, but in my opinion, the best trade has already played out. Okay, for myself, I'm not too interested in looking at another trade because we are at this critical resistance area and it feels a little bit like chasing the move. Okay, so one thing I would do, however, is look at an anchored VWAP. These anchored VWAPs have been respected pretty perfectly on these altcoins. We can see that's also lining up with previous supply. So this is something I would keep an eye on in terms of the low time frame, and that is what I was already showing, our range low. So if there's an SFP of this range low, this is where I would say, okay, I have a low time frame entry trigger on Ethereum, which is the anchored VWAP, previous supply, and range low for a long trade. Okay, but other than that, up here, I am not interested in long trades at all. I need to see a bigger retracement first because I don't want to chase a move that has already happened. So I hope that makes sense. And I hope that explains very well what I'm looking at on Ethereum, as it's actually not too difficult market structure change for the short trade. Other than that, only a low time frame, long trade that I'm interested in. So besides that, there was one call that I made during one of the live trading streams. This is Popcat. So Popcat got our entry. It was a 1 hour SFP down here. I confirmed to our members that I've taken this long trade. I've hit a take profit 1. My stop loss is now moved to break even. So I can show this trade right here. This was yesterday, or this was the setup I was looking at during the live trading streams with Igor, Scott, and Daniel. Okay, it was the weekly. I wanted to see the SFP of this previous range. And then we can see I confirmed this right at the time I was taking the long trade, 1 hour SFP on Popcat. I have taken the long trade, no financial advice, obviously. And yeah, here I exactly said where I'm taking the take profit 1. We can see how that played out. And this is my entry, so 1.3789. So if you want to see updates like this, or if you want to see codes like this, we obviously have the Black Friday deal running at the moment. So you definitely want to make sure of that, because it's paying for itself, as you can see with these altcoin calls. So yeah, head over to the website at chartchampions.com and you can check out the Black Friday sale, which is not running forever. So you definitely want to make use of that. But how am I managing this trade on Popcat going forward? Would I be interested in compounding this trade? There is one thing that I can clearly see which is preventing me from being interested in compounding this trade. And that is very simply the series of lower highs that we are still forming on Popcat. If I had seen a market structure change and then a retest, this is where I would be interested in a compound for this long trade. But here as it stands, I am not interested in a compound. If I'm stopped out at break even, that's not a problem at all. This has been a successful and profitable trade, whatever happens next. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let's see what Bitcoin does in this low time frame range. I hope that you are now prepared of what's to come on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and also how to manage the Popcat trade. So see you all in the next live trading sessions this week or in my next YouTube video. So I hope you all enjoyed, and goodbye.